So, what is a game? It's a famously hard term to define. Wittgenstein said that games cannot be defined at all. In a strict sense, I think he was right. Any definition that I've seen of games, and we looked at a lot in my games course, either includes some things that aren't games or fails to include some things that aren't games. But for practical purposes, I came up with this one. A game is a structured activity designed to facilitate play. It doesn't include some peripheral games, like gladiatorial games or the Hunger Games. Do not come into this. They are in a game, but they are not playing. Yeah? Similarly, the games of game theory do not come in. But it serves most of the kind of games that we talk about in everyday life, from poker to World of Warcraft. So, I was going to say, we don't need a definition of play, because we know what it is explicitly. Okay, so that's play. We all know what play is, because it's hardwired into us. Like even animals, as we can see, play. So I hope this doesn't freeze. Don't freeze on me. We do have some features of play which are worth looking at. Again, sorry about the glitches here. It's the result of like moving things from one computer to another. So the first thing about play is that it's done for its own sake. Okay? If you are doing something solely in order to achieve some external goal, like brushing your teeth in order to get clean teeth, you are not playing. It's not true, as Roger Caillois says, though, that play is always unproductive. Caillois actually describes play as a glorious waste. A waste of time, of energy, or money even. But in fact, play often is productive. You play tennis, you get fit. You play hangman, you learn English vocabulary. The point is that you should not be concentrating on the product while you are playing. If all the time you're playing tennis, you're thinking, oh, I'm burning a lot of calories here, you probably won't play very well and you won't enjoy it. The second thing is that play creates its own meaning. Think about all the different things we do with balls in games. We kick them into nets, we throw them through hoops, we whack them with sticks. None of this has any meaning outside the game. And possibly because of this, games tend to feel meaningful, even though intellectually we know there is no great meaning to this game of golf we are playing. Because the game creates its own meaning, it has its own language, we feel involved in it, we feel that we are doing something meaningful. And that leads us to this one, it's actively absorbing. A lot of things are absorbing. Television is absorbing. But television is passively absorbing. Games, you're actually doing something. So if you're playing, you are active and you're totally absorbed in the action. And this relates back to what Csikszentmihalyi says about flow. In a state of flow, you are totally concentrated on the task. You are oblivious to the outside world. You may even, in extreme cases, get distortions of time. You probably remember this from when you were kids. You played all day and suddenly your mother says, come home. You say, oh, we just started. And again, wouldn't it be great if we could get that in our lessons? Because of all these, also, play creates optimal mental states. Flow is one. Another one which game designers talk about a lot is fiero. Fiero is an Italian word which means pride, but in game terms, it's this thing. Yes! What games call an epic win. You don't get that extreme all the time, but the idea is to have like little bits of it and then occasionally a really big one. In academic terms, it's what you get when you get an A for your course. Looking at some of the elements of play, Caillois talks about 4 different types of play. And he gives them all like Greek and Latin words, which is great for making games sound serious and academic. Agon is the first. Agon means competition. This was actually taken as a chess competition, but as though that wasn't enough, they also started arm wrestling between matches. Again, we saw that in the first thing. Simply by putting you into different teams and competing against each other, it made it more game-like and more fun. What he didn't talk about, though, was cooperation or collaboration is also very important in games. You can have individual competitions, but the most popular games tend to be team games. You see this obviously with football, but also World of Warcraft. One of the things that makes people keep coming back to World of Warcraft is that they form these groups called guilds. They go on missions that they call raids, where they all have to go and kill some monster. And it requires an amazing amount of coordination. Sometimes like 40 people can be involved in a very carefully planned raid, all doing specific things. And they like it because they are part of this group working together. Alia, from the Latin word for dice, chance. If it's just chance on its own, then it's not really a game. It's a lottery or something like that. For example, if somebody was betting on the horses, I wouldn't say he was playing. But a lot of games have an element of chance. Mimicry, role-playing. These are some guys that are medieval fan, I think. But we see this in play all the time, from children playing cops and robbers, through to role-playing games like World of Warcraft, and also, as we'll see, some of the roles we use in class. And finally, he talks about ilinx, which means something like vertigo. This is the kind of feeling of pleasant disorientation that you get from sports like bungee jumping, roller coasters, or just children who spin around until they get dizzy. I haven't yet seen a way to apply this in class. The closest students will get to it is something like that combination of sleeplessness and caffeine that you get when you're working all night on an assignment. So how can we actually apply this in our courses? First thing you can do is to insert an existing game into the curriculum. Some people wouldn't count this as gamification, they just say it's playing games, but I still think it is, because the curriculum as a whole is not a game. The second thing is to take something you're already doing in class and gamify it, make it more like a game. And the last one is simply to use techniques or ideas from games without actually playing the game, just to sort of gamify the curriculum as a whole. Playing games in class, well, Hangman, old favourite. Yeah. The problem with games in class, though, is that we have a lot of it in general English. At beginner's level, I mean, those of you who came through general tackle, you know all about this. You probably spent hours playing Hangman and similar vocabulary games with kids. The number of specific games that you can use decreases as the level of the students go up. Yeah? There are lots of games specifically designed for teaching English at a beginner's level. A lot of you will remember Carmen Sandiego from the 1990s. Apparently she's still going strong. I visited the website recently. She's now involved in teaching maths. Most of the games are at a fairly basic level. The big exception is vocabulary games, because you can play those at any level. This is one that I don't play in class. I have it on my website for students to play outside of class. So I found a Hangman game. It was open source, available for anybody to use. And I just changed the words, so it's based on the academic word list. And students can click on the sub-list that they want to practice, and they can play Hangman with it. There are other games I'm sure you're all familiar with. One of my favourites is Hot Seat, also known as Poor Man's Taboo. Yeah, so you have the word on the whiteboard, the student sits in front of it. And again, the beauty of a game like that is that you can tie it to the vocabulary that you want. I always give my students a vocabulary list. I generate this from the kind of intersection of the text in the course and the academic word list. So these are the words they really need to learn, and these are the words that I use in games. And there are others. Pictionary I've used sometimes. For speaking fluency, there's a game that used to be played on BBC Radio. I don't know if they still play it, called Just a Minute. You have to speak on a random subject for 1 minute without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. It's incredibly hard. But it's great as practice for things like oral exams, just to get them so concentrating on the game that they lose their worry about what it it is they're actually saying. They don't stop worrying about their grammar or whether they know the subject. They just concentrate on getting the words out of their mouth. What I tend to do more, though, is take an activity that I'm already doing and make it a bit more game-like. This, for example, I'm sure you've all had hundreds of handouts like this. This is something I prepared a few years ago, the first time I did my games course. I noticed that one of the texts had a lot of good vocabulary about academic research. So words like data, manipulate, calculate, and so on. So first thing I did, being an English teacher, I thought, oh, I can make a gap fill exercise with this. The second thing I did was think, well, this is boring. So what I did was, the next time I did the course, I took this, exactly the same thing, but first I had the students in teams, and I actually use the same teams all the way through the course. There's like a league table. I use the four houses from Harry Potter, Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, Slytherin, because pretty much all my students are in Harry Potter. So they already have the teams there and ready to compete. Each team got a copy of this. They get 6 points if they find the correct word from the text. They get 3 points if they get a word that fits but isn't in the text. And they get 1 point for every card that they still have left. This is where the cards come in again. At the beginning of the game, each team has 10 cards, the numbers 1 to 10, in different suits. And they can surrender a card and get a clue. They get one letter, any letter they choose from one of them. So if they want a clue for question 3, they give me the 3 of spades. It's that last thing that I think really makes it into a game, that really gamifies it. Because you have the idea of choice and strategy. Yeah. They have to make a decision. Is it worth giving up a card to get a clue for this? And this is what makes it a game rather than just a puzzle. So it's still taking the kind of quiz format. They're still answering questions for points. But there's a strategy element involved as well. Another one that I was hoping to show, but again, because of the computer, that I don't think I can do it. I'll just check though. This is a game that I played with an interactive whiteboard. Yeah. This is a punctuation game.
So on to round 2. Okay, the stakes get higher now. So same as before, you're moving punctuation to the right place, but in this case you have to put the punctuation in the sentence. If you get it right, you get 2 points. And a brownie. This wasn't my idea, it was kindly provided. And the same thing applies. If you get it wrong, get it to the next team. They get 1 point, and they get your brownie. So, who are we on now? Slytherin. Starting this time. Slytherin. You can put anyone in any sentence. You don't have to do them in order. Really? Don't lean hard. No, do it gently.
Yeah, they had some problems actually manipulating the objects, as did I.
No.
Okay, and it was the same system. You get 2 points if you get it right. You lose 1 point if you get it wrong.
Bonus point for Gryffindor.
Okay, the next one. The next one got it right. Something that always goes back. Sorry about this, but I'm actually not used to PowerPoint. I use Open Office myself, so I get very confused. Yeah. So that was using the punctuation. Again, it's very like the normal exercise you would have in a textbook, but because it's done with the interactive whiteboard, it's made into a game, it's a lot more engaging. What we did after that, we put the punctuation in. There was a similar exercise where they had to put linkers into different columns. So coordinate conjunctions, subordinate conjunctions, and adverbial linkers. which of course affects the way that they are punctuated. So it's a kind of guided discovery lesson. This one, I did this both with an interactive whiteboard, but also just with a normal computer. You could even do it with pieces of cardboard and blue tack if you're really painstaking. This is one case of going like beyond very simple like vocabulary and grammar skills. I wanted something to develop reading skills and also to give them some practice in outlining, because they were about to do an outline for their term paper, and a lot of students hated outlining, or they just didn't have an idea of what an outline was like. I also had a very long, very difficult text for them to deal with. It was an academic journal article about social interaction during jump rope games. So I gave them like a bit of the article. They had to drag the other bits on the right over there. Now, one advantage this had compared with the previous game is that in the punctuation game, although it was fun and it was informative, most of the action was at the front, and most of the interaction there was teacher-student. With this one, for most of the time, they were just in their groups, discussing and reading the article. And they were doing it in English. Can anybody guess why they were doing it in English? Rather than Turkish.
Minus points for speaking in Turkish.
Exactly, yeah. I have spent about 20 years trying to find ways to stop my students speaking Turkish. They worked amazingly well. I mean, they did sometimes do it, but you just get a few do it, I knocked off points, they would stop doing it. Whereas in other situations where I was actually deducting real grades for chatting to their friends in Turkish, for example, during an oral presentation, that didn't really affect them, but losing points, yeah. Again, teamwork is important. They feel that they've not just lost points themselves, they've lost points for their team. Yeah. So they're much less likely to do it. Okay. So, there are other ways you can gamify things. A debate, for example, which is something we already do, is basically a gamified argument. And again, you can apply the other things. So there's an element of chance. You don't know which side you're going to be arguing. You can use existing teams. So when I did debates, it was, I think, Gryffindor and Hufflepuff versus Ravenclaw and Slytherin. Yeah? So it's a way of wrapping up the excitement a bit. So moving on from actual games through gamified activities, just looking at what we can learn from games in general. These are some of the features that good games have. Not all games have these, yeah, but a lot of very good games, whether it's football or World of Warcraft, whatever terms you want, they kind of leverage human psychology by providing some of these things. The first one I've mentioned already. A balance of competition and collaboration is ideal. You see it again in football and other team sports. You see it, as I said, in World of Warcraft, where you have groups of players, sometimes competing against other players, sometimes competing against things generated by the computer, what we call PvE, player versus environment. That's where they all get together to go and kill a monster. So there is both competition and collaboration. I like to particularly emphasize the second one because the academic environment is competitive enough as it is. You have to be careful with the competition side of it to emphasize that this is only play competition. Yeah? Agon is not a game if it's actual real competition. Yeah? Then it's war or business or whatever. Another thing that games have is clear, inspiring goals. You normally know exactly what the victory conditions for a game are. In our courses, yeah, we do have a clear goal, is to pass the course, yeah, or to learn English. But that is just a mega goal. Yeah, that's a goal that they are pursuing over 6 months or a year, sometimes. What you need is sub-goals as well. And that ties into this. Appropriate challenges. Challenge we've seen is very important, both in games and in the school curriculum. The challenge has to be at the right level. Unfortunately, we cannot control the level of the main goal. Yeah? That is controlled by the institution, by the TOEFL exam or whatever. We can, however, provide tasks at a lot of different levels. Yeah? So while in an academic writing course, for example, they may have a couple of really big assignments. Right? We need them to do a 3,000-word paper. That is quite hefty. So there should be other like mini tasks, mini challenges, where they're not really filling up to sitting down and writing a term paper. For example, I always give a grade for online participation. So every time they write something on a forum, they're getting a little bit of credit. So this is the kind of mini challenge. It's the equivalent in online games of, I don't know, going out and killing a wild boar rather than going and killing a dragon. Yeah? Game designers have studied this. What they find is that you need one like really big one from time to time. Yeah? A lot of little ones in between to keep up the thing. It's the same actually as with an action film. Yeah? You have one really big fight at the end, but you also have all little fights in between just to keep the audience's attention without stressing them out. Another thing that games, really good games, offer is multiple routes to success. This is something where I feel we are a bit weak in our curriculum. Again, we have institutional pressures, we have to do certain things. Often we're dealing with a curriculum where everything is set down to the last percentage. Fortunately, in BUSEL, we do have a little bit of freedom. We have some grades we can play around with. So with this online participation grade, there is no one way that they have to do it. They can get points by writing for a forum. They can get points by contributing to one of the glossaries we do. They can get points by taking an online quiz. The grade they get for the quiz is completely unimportant. These are ungraded quiz. The points are just for them. But they get a point just for going and doing the quiz. So that's one of our kind of little tasks, like killing the wild boar or the beetle or something in an online game. Also, constant feedback. That's a feature of good games. You're always being told how well you are doing it, whether you are succeeding. In tennis, it's a very, very simple feedback mechanism. If the ball lands in your opponent's side, you know you've done it right. If it lands in your side, you're doing it wrong. Yeah? And you have points as a measure of that. So, again, with the game at the beginning, you got the right answers after you've given your answer. And also at the end, you could see, look at your points overall, how well you're doing. And again, a problem with the EAP syllabus is often because it's so based on writing and major writing, students have to wait a long time before they get their feedback. If you're writing a 3,000-word term paper, you submit your draft, you might have to wait 2 weeks to get any feedback on it, as opposed to playing tennis, where the feedback is instantaneous. I've been trying to think of ways around that. Doing feedback online helps a lot. But even so, I haven't managed to really improve the turnover of my essay grading. It's just not physically possible. But again, you can have these like mini tasks that provide instant feedback. Yeah. Again, forums are great because you write a forum, somebody else answers it. Yeah. Moodle actually has a system of grading forum entries. I don't want to do that because that would, again, remove the play element and replace it with a work element. What I would really like would, if they had like a like thing, like you have on Facebook, so you have a thumbs up or +1 on Google, so other students could like each other's forum posts. That would work. Putting all this together, you get a sense of accomplishment. Just to show how I implement some of these in Moodle, various game elements. So here you see our teams. So we have a scoreboard. Again, this is something that's used a lot in commercial gamification. Points. Air miles are a very simple example of this. Clocking up points and rewards. Also, this is something directly taken from games, a progress bar. Yeah? You can see how much of the mission you have completed in a green bar going across your screen. As soon as I heard about this, I thought, oh God, I should write a Moodle module to do this. Unfortunately, I didn't have to. It does exist. It's called Checklist. It's not part of the main Moodle package, but you can download it and install it if you have a friendly Moodle system administrator. And there may be things for other LMSs like that. So again, it's feedback as soon as they do something on the Moodle thing, even if it's just like reading the syllabus. Yeah, it creeps over a little bit. Also, a randomness element. So I have a random glossary entry, so that each time they log into Moodle, they don't know what word is going to come, and it could be theirs, because the glossary is created by the students. And also, again, this giving a sense of achievement, of winning. With these vocabulary quizzes, or other quizzes that I put on Moodle, I put the highest 3 grades on there. And that's something that's done automatically by Moodle. I don't have to fill that in myself. But as I said, that is only for the play elements of the course. Yeah? These quizzes are not part of their real grade. I would never put students' actual grades on an LMS. When I was a student, they used to put grades, exam results, on the department notice boards, and it was horrible. You know, you go there and you're right down at the bottom, or at least you're worried that you're going to be, however well you think you've done. And that's the point. So I want to get on now to caveats, very briefly. Gamification can go wrong. And one of the ways that it can go wrong is that academia is already kind of gamified. Yeah? You do a course, you get points in grades, you level up at the end of the semester, and at the end you have your epic win when you graduate, or your epic fail, depending on how lucky you are. The point is that people don't like this kind of gamification at all. Yeah? It's too serious. So make a clear distinction between the kind of the grade layer and the play layer. Because basically, the point of games, as I said, is to facilitate play. Yeah? So coming back to this definition, a game is a structured activity designed to facilitate play. A curriculum is a structured activity designed to facilitate learning. Yeah? So play facilitates learning. That's in all your pedagogical textbooks. Games facilitate play. Play facilitates learning. If you just go for the games thing and just throw points and scoreboards and things without really being playful, then this could go very wrong. My greatest worry, in fact, is that educational management will take the idea of gamification and run with it. So you'll be getting directives from your heads of department saying, oh yes, we have to have points, we have to have scoreboards, we have to have games in class. That would probably be absolutely awful, because the main thing, I think, is being playful. So for my conclusion, I would like to encourage all of you, go out, look at your curriculum, make it more playful. I think we have time for any questions, if anybody has any burning questions. Yeah.
There was one bullet point, the last one, that I don't think you addressed, investment in loss.
Oh, yeah, that was because I was running out of time. But it's very important. The phrase actually comes from my Taiji teacher, Zheng Lanqing, who, as a young man, went around China challenging all the kung fu masters he could find and getting beaten up. And as a result of this, he claims he learned to be one of the best martial artists of his generation, because while they were beating him, he was observing their technique. So that stuck in my head. Also, again, Jay McGonigal mentioned there was some research done on what World of Warcraft players were doing at any one point. And 80% of them were actually failing in a mission. Yeah? But they were not getting depressed or dispirited or giving up. They kept going back, because it was expected that the first few times you go on a quest, you will fail. The monster will kill you. Yeah. And I think this is something we could learn from. A lot of educational theory, particularly the behaviorist-inspired stuff, is like, oh, we should not allow errors. We must eliminate others, otherwise students will learn their errors. I think you need error. You can't learn without errors. And in terms of curriculum design, it's not really practical in the system we have at the moment, but I have done it occasionally in the past. If students do 3 essays, yeah, normally, make them do 4 essays and pick the best 3. Allow them to fail at one essay. Because something I've noticed is that students often mess up their first written assignment. They don't really understand what's writing is bad, they misunderstand the task, they end up getting a C-, and that happens right at the beginning of the semester and completely blows their chance of getting an A for the course.
Other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you all.